What an amazing day. Don't you love it? Don't you love today? Is it awesome, by the way? I hope you think it's totally awesome. I think it's totally awesome. It's because it's another day that the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and be glad in it because PaleocratDiaries is on the air. Ow! Come on! We got to rock this out. No more messing around, folks. Man, that mic is up super loud. I hope your neighbors heard it. I hope your neighbors heard it, and I hope that your neighbors are hearing you praising the Lord every day, resolving deep inside to take a knee for Christ the King, resolving to give every single thought, every single word, and every single deed to Him. He has all power and authority, straight up, it's true. So we give everything, all our gifts, all our talents, and we resolve, we dedicate in our hearts, enthroning Him to never give up, to keep on smiling, and to remember that one day we too shall die. And we don't know how. We don't know how it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. And because we don't know how, and because we don't know when or where or any of those things, because we don't, we have to just dream bigger thoughts right now. We need to dream bigger thoughts. We need to give it everything we've got. And we need to no longer be ashamed, especially right now, because we're surrounded by sin. We're surrounded by some of the worst things in all the world. It's terrible times, tumultuous in fact, it's true. But that's exactly why God made people like you and people like, me, for a time just like this. You have a purpose. You have a purpose. What are you doing today to actualize that? You have to pray. You have to pray hard. You have to say, God, whatever it is, whatever you made me for, I'm going to do it. That's what I did. That's what I did, and that's why I do the show. And that's why we've decided to go the way we decided to go. And today, we're going to be talking about, mystics and messiahs. Some of the cuckoo bird weirdos, the OGs over in the Black Gods, Black Messiahs cults. We've talked about a lot of white people. Talked about a lot of white people so far. But black people got up in the mix, right? They got up in the mix, and we're going to talk about that, but not quite yet. Not quite yet. Because, first of all, I just want to tell you, just real quick, if you have not gone and at least checked out the SAINTMAKER, right? If you have not checked it out, you got to do it. They are sponsoring today's program. Amazing, amazing group of guys over there. In fact, Nathan's a great dude, right? I talk about the product all the time, right? I tell you what it is. I tell you what it does. You're going to hear in just a second about that. But Nathan's a legit dude, right? He's the guy that I talk with a lot on the phone. And the kind of heart that he has, the vision that he has, the aims and the goals, what he's trying to accomplish with this, just amazing. Just true blue, right? True blue, bona fide Catholic. This is what he is. And he himself wants to be a saint. And he wants to see others become a saint. That's him using gifts and talents. That's him dreaming bigger thoughts, way outside of himself, unwilling to accept how things are, how things have been. He knows it can be better. And not just for him, but for you. And so I really encourage you. I encourage you to go check it out. I encourage you to go and watch this in just a second. Watch this. You'll learn a little bit about it, okay? But check it out. And of course, you can go down. We got the link in the description below, as well as the promo code. Can a personal planner really make you a saint? Not by itself. But in our day and age of addictive apps and glowing screens, we're bombarded by constant distraction, and our quest for sainthood often takes a backseat. The SAINTMAKER is the first high-performance planner for the spiritual life, made by faithful Catholics for faithful Catholics. It's a work of genius, really, fusing the wisdom of the saints with the science of personal productivity. It's rigorous, but sainthood is tough, and most of us need help organizing our time, our work, our leisure, and our devotion, because that can help you become a saint. The SAINTMAKER is elegant, fits in your purse or briefcase, and is a perfect companion for your missal, Bible, or rosary. Published 4 times per year, each season includes daily planning pages, feast days, and devotions for both forms of the liturgical calendar, goal-setting pages, confession journals, and more. It's why the SAINTMAKER is used by hardworking Catholics like CEO of Sock Religious Scott Williams, best-selling author Sam Guzman, YouTubers like Amber Schneider, a Catholic wife Dina Barca and Brian Holdsworth, and priests like Father Corey Stitcha. Try the SAINTMAKER out, and if you decide that it's not for you, you can send it back for a full refund within 90 days. So go right now. Find your life planner at thesaintmaker.com. Quantities are limited though, so head on over to thesaintmaker.com to order yours and to start your SAINTMAKER journey today. It's an awesome idea. In fact, one of the better ideas you probably heard in a while. You got to check it out, SAINTMAKER.com/PaleocratDiaries. You got to do it. Right there is the alert system. For those who are unaware, that is the sound that goes out, right, as all of the mods, all of the admins at PaleocratDiaries HQ over on Telegram, a link in the description below, they're running right now. They're running to their rooms, opening up the closet, right, the special vault, putting in the code. They're turning all the knob, the dial, listening really close for that code, pulling out a big box and releasing carrier pigeons to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west, letting all the world know that your boy, Jeremiah Bannister, the OG Paleocrat, the one and only, it's true, on the air right now. And it's going to be awesome because we're talking today mystics and messiahs. Have you wondered about that? Have you wondered where did all this wokeness come from? Where did all these ideas come from? We're living through the heyday of it right now. All the kind of crazy that comes with Black Lives Matter, critical race theory, right? All of that stuff. A whole bunch of that is not new, in fact. Interestingly enough, it goes back quite a ways to, you know, the occult. The occult. Surprise, surprise. Are you surprised? Probably not. Probably not. So go right now. Do not be afraid any longer to let your friends know where you stand, that you are educating yourself. You're downloading that information to the brain every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here, Paleocrat Diaries. But let them know. Say, look, that's not what I believe. That's not just not what I believe. It's not just my opinion. No, that is redonkulous nonsense. Redonkulous nonsense. And we got to tear it down to the ground. Better than that, we have to pull it up by the roots. We're first things first kind of people. We start out right from the get-go, going for the jugular, wham! Right? Tearing down systems, deconstruction. And that way, but why do we do that? Oh, I'll tell you why. Because it dares, in fact, to exalt itself against Christ the King. It dares to exalt its phony, fantastical, nonsensical ideas against the truth of Christ. Right? It's true. And so we ain't playing around no footsies over here. So let your friends know, no more shame, no more fear. That's what got us here. We're not letting that candle, right, go to sleep in the night underneath that bushel, all right? We ain't gonna do it. It's not the kind of folks we are, that's for sure. I'll tell you that. Tell you that. It's true. In the comments, real quick, moving along. I'm sorry I started late, by the way. As if that's the first time that's ever happened. I say it like it's like, oh, guys, it's never happened before. I don't know what that's all about. Yeah, I'm always really on time. Always really, really on time. It's true. We're professional here. So in the comments, by the way, if you want to connect with me, as you can see on the screen, you see those yellow squares there, the rectangles? It says the meaning of Catholic. I am right now broadcasting from the meaning of Catholic. So if you would like to connect with me today, and you want to make sure that I see what you say, rather than, let's say, down here. You see how you don't see any of that in here, right? You don't see those orange squares. You could put my name in there, but it just looks like that. I have no clue, and you're going to make me read all that. I'm probably not going to reply. So if you want to connect with me, if you want me to reply about something, right, before the Afterglow Q&A Super Show Extravaganza, which is right afterward, again, link in description below. If you'd like to connect with me and you'd like to get my attention on this so that I can read it and know and don't have to scramble around, please do your boy a big honking favor and do the @the_meaning of Catholic. All right, let's see here. Good morning, Jeremiah, rocking out for the Lord. Yes, Rachel, huzzah. I'm here for the mariachi music. I'll tell you, I'm going to be using that mariachi music again. Yeah, I'm bummed out that I haven't. I'm serious about that. I'm actually really bummed out, legit, that I have not used the mariachi music. That's how it all started, even before Dangerous Now. Even before Dangerous Now, the show started out with that, and a cigar. I used to smoke cigars on the show. You know, there were people who were grumpy about that. There are people who were just not happy. Yeah, you say you're really looking forward to this episode. Yeah, so am I. I always look forward to the episodes, though. I do. I love doing what I do. I do what I love, and I love what I do. And part of the mission of PaleocratDiaries is helping to equip you and to ensure you that that it's true. You can do it too, right? To do those things you love. It's not overnight. This wasn't overnight. It's still not overnight. Right? We're trying really hard. Yes, the empire is expanding. We're almost at the threshold. We're 6 away from a number count that we've been trying to reach over on Telegram. 6 away from a party. We party every 50 people. We're always partying over there. We stream stuff and have a good time. We do live chats. Man, everybody's in there. It's having a good time, and we do that. But we're only 4 away, and we've done a number of these. It's been awesome. The frequency rate is getting better and better, right? But I'd like to party every day. I want to party every day, so we need 50 new people, okay? That's what we need. We need 50 new people every single day. Do it right now. So, okay. Much love to the Wolf Pack, the Kaiser and his family, taking a knee for Christ the King. It's good to see you there, Kevin. Good to see. Alpha says, in my own research over the past few years, I believe 90% of the wokeness, anti-white sentiment, and institutional policies literally come from the Nation of Islam. It's most definitely a huge factor. I mean, the overlap is remarkable, isn't it? It really is. The overlap is absolutely remarkable. And we're going to learn a little bit. And just so you know, this is an introduction. It's not going to be the deepest dive into the Nation of Islam, because I got a buddy that I want to bring on the show, right? And want to bring him on. He used to be involved with that sort of thing. He was himself a Muslim, and he is very familiar with Nation of Islam in that community. And so I wanted to bring him in and talk about it. And I've had experience as well, right? We actually had a guy stay at our home for a while. It's about, I think, 3 months of that year. He stayed with us. He was in a rough spot, but he is also Nation of Islam. So we had a number of conversations actually during that time. And I ended up having tons of newspapers. So I got all the newspapers, all the propaganda. I got it all, man. I even got a couple books. One of them, which one is it? Is it Letter to the Black Man? It's the very beginning of it shows how abysmally ignorant their leaders, their prophets are. Elijah Muhammad, particularly, on the doctrine of the Trinity. It's nonsense. But it's actually been a joy in a way. It's been fun, I guess. Now, I don't know if I enjoy, but fun to actually do research on that particular group, because if there's a lot of internal debates in the black community, even over extremism, right? Like even over extremism, like you're not the real extremist I am, kind of thing. And so you have debates over that, right? Where they disagree with each other. And the debates, for anybody in Catholicism, you've probably seen a bunch of debates, Catholic Answers, Meaning of Catholic, Reason and Theology. You're out there watching these different debates. Classical Theist, or by the way, Pine Sap. Pine Sap just recently debated Robert Diamond, the brother Robert who is LARPing by the name of was it Peter? Yeah. LARPing by the name Peter. Yeah, so Robert Diamond, you debated Robert Diamond recently, but if you're familiar with those kinds of debates, there's a kind of etiquette, right? And they don't have the same etiquette. It's a different world, man. It's kind of fun, though. I mean, you watch, and you're like, man, dude, that's like serious trash talking. Serious trash talking. And I'm waiting for organs in the background, wah, wah. People start playing, waving hankies all over. I'm dead serious. I'm not, that's for real. It's for real. So it's kind of an interesting thing to do. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Haley says, girls at the lake yesterday were talking about being grounded and their energies being focused. You should tune them into the show and have them follow up on it. Have them follow up and be like, okay, what do you think about that, by the way? Oh, yeah, let's see. Let's see. No, not the Nation of Islam. Well, look, we're doing the history of enthusiasms, heresies, cults, right? The occult, and so it's part of the book. And as I said, today it's just an introduction to some basic ideas. Yeah. The link to join us on Telegram. This is the last thing I'll say about it. Somebody recently, let me guess, Robert Diamond won the debate. Yeah. No. No. Yeah, Pine Sap, I'll tell you, that guy, dude's a genius. Super proud to be his bro. Super proud. He's got a cool channel. He's definitely a huge time supporter of PaleocratDiaries, the invincible argument of St. Francis de Sales, as well as presuppositional, Catholic presuppositionalism. So we're brothers in arms. We are brothers in arms on that. What was I going to say? Oh, somebody came in last night. Okay, so somebody came in yesterday and a couple days ago, and they were just asking kind of like, what's this all about? And I said, look, we're a community live show, right? So we're a community program. It's why we spend so much time even in the comments, talking to people and stuff. Those are people, a lot of them, who are over at the Wolfpack, right? So this is our happy fun time on Wednesdays, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They're always excited about it, keeping me on my toes. And then we go over, as soon as this is done, we go over to the Q&A. And that's over, it's kind of like a Skype chat or a Zoom chat. It's just on Telegram. And that way you can engage in it. You don't have to put your camera on. If you want, you can just lurk. But we do that every single day. We have chats. And the kind of conversations that come out of that are unbelievable, right? The way that it impacts people, the people we've met, all different gifts, all different talents, all different places in life. And one of the things that they're doing, many of them, not all, but many, that they're doing is there are some that have connected with the program I'm doing right now, which, and I don't know if you could tell. I don't know if you could tell, you can actually start to see my jawline, right? You can start, right? I'm making it. I'm getting there. But it's the Fat Shame to Fitness program. And I shared a picture of the progress in 1 month's time. 1 month's time. I look like a bulldog. I look like a bulldog. But people coming in all different weights. Some of them, man, it's gotten real bad. We're talking like real bad weight gain. Over the years, struggling, having a difficult time. They're over there, right? And we do live streams. And that's private. People might not want everybody knowing that they're a fat guy or fat girl. I mean, like, well, I kind of hide behind an avatar or something. Look, that's okay. That's okay. But there's all sorts of things that we do over there. And so I really do encourage people, click that link. Click it. Let people know that you're part of the movement. You're part of the group. Part of the group. Super psyched. All right. Moving on. Enough of that. We're already 23 minutes. I didn't think it took that long. How did this happen? I thought I was crushing it. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? Who cares? I'm looking down, going, "That's a long time. That's a long time." Okay. Right here in the book, Mystics and Messiahs: Cults and New Religions in American History. This is chapter 5, Black Gods. My name is Mahdi. I am God. It's Wallace Fard, quoted in Claude Andrew Clegg, The Original Man. And it's interesting. He begins by saying, although scholars tend to treat black and white movements as separate phenomena, the two grew from exactly the same cultural roots and bore far more mutual resemblance than either might have cared to admit. And that's an interesting thing. Sometimes, the way that we view stuff is kind of, they're in their own little worlds. And it's easy a little bit, isn't it? Right? Because of the way that many in the black community go to church, a lot of the fact that we even have a thing called black churches, the fact that we have that, right? That people can see these things and say that history, even though it's within an overall cultural context, it's kind of got its own roots and things. But the truth is that thinking as much, number one, right? It took away a lot of the blame, because a lot of the stuff that these folks end up believing were things that were in fact started by some white folks, some wicked messed up white folks with poo-poo trash theology. Okay? And so it took away some of the blame. It also made it easy to find targets like, for example, voodoo. Right? And it's incorrect. See. Both were exposed to the enticing doctrine of the God within, a mixture of Christian Science, New Thought, Theosophy, spiritualism, and plain foolishness. And that last part's in a quotation. That phrase originally referred to the New York religious milieu that produced Father Divine. But it could with equal justice be used for many of his contemporaries. By the 1930s, these ideas were influencing national movements. The I Am movement, right? The silver shirts for whites, Nation of Islam, and Father Divine's Peace Mission for blacks. So you had the same basic philosophical and theosophical ideas, the same New Age ideas, the same New Thought ideas were at play in both groups. The same Freemasonic, right, the occultism of Freemasonry. Big time influence. Big time influence. For blacks as well as whites, a period of reaction soon followed, right? So you have the period of emergence, and this is something that he talks about. You have the period of emergence that happens with any cultic group, and then after the emergence, of course, you're going to have your reaction period, right? Right here. However, the whole concept of cult was applied more generously to black movements, which at every stage were depicted as far more extreme, ludicrous, and dangerous than their white counterparts. Most of the different kinds of new African American movements swiftly earned the title of cult, including the followers of Father Divine and the Muslim sects, and essentially all movements outside established churches like the Baptists and the Methodists. Now, I don't know if we can say the exact same thing within the confines of Protestantism, and that should be added here, that within the confines of a culture that is Protestant, in that world, for Protestants to so quickly marginalize a religious group or a religious idea and call it a cult, insofar as it deviates from, let's say, more mainstream entities by that point, right, of Methodism and the Baptists. And just as a reminder, I had to say by that time because the Methodists and the Baptists did not, in fact, start out as mainstream. Methodism plays a huge role in the Enthusiasm series in the videos about John Wesley and the revivalism, the real quackery going on over there, right? So, but again, by this time, when this happens, you end up having these groups that typically start out rabidly enthusiastic, super bizarre, real weird beliefs. It sets them apart from everybody else, which is part of what the reason for that. But after a certain amount of time, typically, a lot of these groups, at least the ones that last, a lot of these groups end up changing. And the changes that they make typically tone down their distinctives, sometimes scrapping them entirely, but at least toning them down. And what that does is it allows kind of a leveling that takes place within a Protestant culture that says, okay, now it's at least more acceptable. The distinctives aren't so, there's not so much of a contrast between us. There's more of a comparison. And so at least in the way that you view it, it'd be, well, we can compare that. It's not so diametrically opposed. And so that was not granted, however, to a lot of these groups. There were stereotypes involved, right? There were stereotypes that blacks were more vulnerable, in fact, to cult-like behavior, right? These exotic people subject to unrestrained sexuality and violence when not restrained by white control. It seemed only natural that blacks would revert to these so-called jungle or African characteristics. Again, this when I said removing the blame, right? Removing the blame that would be attributed to the origins, to the ideas underlying New Thought metaphysics, underlying Freemasonry, underlying theosophy, underlying Christian Science, underlying all those things. If we take away, we're talking lots of white people mixed up in that mix. We're talking the idea that that's jungle stuff. Most people wouldn't say, oh, that's like going back to the jungle. That is what was being used, and you're going to learn that. For both black and white Americans, the first quarter of the 20th century was a time of rapid social change. African American migration to northern and Midwestern cities accelerated during the First World War in response to labor shortages, and the thriving urban cultures of the 1920s were fertile ground for all manner of religious and political innovation. And it was a new consciousness of one's blackness and whiteness. You had groups like the NAACP, founded in 1909. You had multiple independent black newspapers. You still have many of those today. Okay, and it ended up there was major time, black-white conflicts and rioting that occurred between 1919 and 1921. And of course, we have the revival of lynching. You had Marcus Garvey, right? His Universal Negro Improvement Association, which taught Black Americans that they had a true spiritual and national home in the land of Ethiopia. But even this, the idea of this is your true natural home, even that is not that kind of black separatism. That isn't unique to them, right? Abraham Lincoln was involved in this, in that sort of a thing. Ira Reid scoffed at the whole ramshackle culture of, quote, bishops without a diocese, those who heal with divine inspiration, praying circles that charge for their services. American blacks turned Jews overnight, theological seminaries conducted in the rear of railroad apartments. You know, that's one of the things. Have you noticed this, though? Look at the long-standing nature of that, right? Bishops without a diocese. Well, you know, Catholics can make fun of that, but I know a lot of Catholics who go, oh, yeah, man, it's totally legit. It's totally legit. It's like supplied jurisdiction. or it's because the crisis, dude. It's because the crisis we have that. I'm sure that Bishop T.D. Jakes would say the same thing. Some of the new sects attracted media attention precisely because they seem so outrageous, so vulnerable to parody. Exemplified by George Baker, Father Divine, whose followers believed, in fact, that he was literally the big G-O-D. So they believed he was God. Look, this is God right now, bro. This is God. Name is Father Divine. Right? But he was a contemporary of Rosicrucian and theosophical figures like Guy Ballard, R.S. Clymer, and Edward A. Wilson, as well as Frank Buchman. By the age of 20, the father had already associated with several messianic figures, one of whom, Father Jehovah, was influenced by New Thought. So no matter where you go, you're going to keep seeing over and over and over and over again, you're going to keep seeing New Thought. You're going to keep seeing these theosophical ideas, Freemasonic ideas. By 1915, he was preaching that God was personified and rematerialized in himself. Speaking about Father Divine, okay? Let's see. In 1932, of course, he was jailed pending psychiatric evaluation. So people back then, they took that thing a little bit more seriously. They were like, look, this guy's claiming to be God, okay? We need to put this cat into a medical facility. But here's the thing. The judge in that case ended up shortly dying. You know, he died shortly after that, suddenly, in fact. And it gave rise to the claims that Father Divine had struck him down for blasphemy. There was all this kind of excitement because of that. You see that with a lot of cults too, right? I've seen that with a lot of cults where, you know, they've talked about stopping tornadoes, right? You have these cult leaders that pray and put their hand out and the weather's obeying them and stuff. In fact, the founder of the Sedevacantist CMRI, his followers to this day, he got booted out. You know, there's a good possibility that the dude was into dudes and some drugs. So he's into drugs and dudes. And yeah, they kicked him out, right? But when he was there, you know, you have people that to this day, they herald him as this kind of saintly figure of the end times. And the stories that they talk about, the way that with one single prayer, he kind of put his hand out and he prayed, and there was this major tornado and it just suddenly stopped. And so they've got even that around him. But with these folks, he's walking down the street and people are yelling, God, there goes the Father. Father Divine is God, the true and living God. Right? Over the coming years, the Father's followers promoted a steady flow of similar tales of miraculous punishments, right, regarding whether or not someone was faithless or disrespectful. We see this with Benny Hinn. We see this with TBN. Same thing. Where they talk, anybody who comes after them, anybody who decries what they believe over there, those folks, and remember, those folks, we talked about the connection with New Thought. So it seems to be this thing with New Thought. It's one of those things. You talk against the divine revelations that we've got, I'm telling you right now, there's going to be enormous amounts of punishment for you. I'd say, are you threatening me? Or are you saying that there's like some other thing in the universe that's established that sets it up that way? Did you do that? What's the mechanism? Let me know. But it was a big thing anyway for the media too, because the media at that time, their big boogeyman at that time was Sister Amy Semple McPherson. Now we're going to talk about her in a future episode. She's got a weird story. I mean, it's bizarre, but a lot of these folks we're going to find, a lot of these folks were at the beginning, right? They're at the beginning stages of mass media. Not with books. We're talking like radio, stuff like that, television, video cameras in general, cameras, taking photographs where a lot of people are. It's not just every once in a while, and you're not standing there forever waiting for the flash. That sort of a thing. At that point, you were able to smile. You were able to do numerous things. But the idea, though, right, is that Father Divine, he ended up taking on this new role. Now, this new role, we still have kind of this idea, and the idea is they refer to it as pimp preachers. Okay, you can actually see that on YouTube and stuff. The way that they live, the way that people view them as God, as divine. And driving around in Rolls Royces. So you have kind of the birth in many ways. You have the birth of stuff that's like TBN. You do. But they took it a little further. They're actually saying that they themselves are the one and only God. Right? Not that they are God-like or a carbon copy and we all are. No. They've centralized that, in fact, upon themselves. Let's see here. It had centers in New York, Philadelphia, Newark, Seattle, Los Angeles. Services mainly consisted of hymns of adoration for the Father and gratitude for all he'd given his adherents through material prosperity. And people can say, wow, did he really? Did he really? Now, it kind of depended, number one, how many people were actually involved with that movement. Okay, because it kind of depended on how he felt that day. Sometimes it'd be in the thousands, right? Or, 100,000. Sometimes it's 5 million. I got 5 million. Oh, yeah, okay. But regardless, and while the majority of them were black, you had many people who were white, Latino, right? Many people who'd been Baptist, holy rollers, Christian scientists, theosophists before they came to the Father. And it gained credibility through what? Its social programs. It included free food for the homeless. As a white character opined in Sinclair Lewis's novel, It Can't Happen Here, the best of the current wave of messiahs, and there were many, quote, is this Father Divine. He just doesn't promise he's going to feed the underprivileged 10 years from now. He hands out the fried drumsticks and gizzard right along with the salvation. And he did. So he wasn't just simply saying, look, he's going out providing food to people who are homeless on the street, just free food all over the place. So there was no just giving people money. He's like, no, I'll actually feed you. We'll work together. That was instrumental in people seeing that and saying, okay, it's not just some guy saying something, right, and making a bunch of loot. They saw that it kind of offset the typical image we have of people who call themselves divine and sit on thrones in pimp daddy churches. Like that's driving around in a Rolls Royce, you know what I mean? So it made it more to people, made it more palatable. Within the group, right, 1944, quote, Father Divine is the organization. Father Divine is God. He's everywhere, knows everything, sees and hears all things. Even though he dwells in New York City or Philadelphia, a decision made by a follower in California could not have materialized independently, but must have been the result of spirit wireless directly, right? Of spirit wireless directly from the Father Divine. So here we have, again, spirit wireless. So yeah, is that a thing? Spirit wireless. What kind of coverage do you have? Spirit wireless. What's that? It's divine. Father Divine, that is. But look at the way the technics plays in to the way that people can understand, to understand how in maybe a materialistic worldview, how you would be able to have a God who's in a person who's able to communicate without invoking some kind of spirit, some kind of ghosty. or as Nation of Islam refers to it, spooks. Spirit wireless. Let's see. Yeah, we'll skip over the membership. There were obviously different kinds. There, some that were like kind of on the fringe. They were members. They believed in it, but they weren't hardcore. You had others who were angels, they called them. But he wasn't alone. Okay, he was by no means the only prophet of this era. Only marginally less exalted in his claims was Sweet Daddy Grace. He began his preaching in 1919, right? And he became the absolute head of the United House of Prayer for all people. In many ways, this was a Christian sect of the holiness type, believing in conversion, sanctification, and the intervention of the Holy Spirit. However, and there is in fact a big but in here, and I cannot lie. It's true. There is a big but in that sentence, okay? Daddy Grace was the center of a cult of personality and veneration far above what was found in other such groups. That's kind of downplaying it. That's downplaying it, right? So that isn't the big but. The big one, he boasted of taking on earthly forms specifically to help elevate the humble black race. Daddy proved his bona fides by applying to himself, and this is the big but, all New Testament passages concerning grace. So just think about it. Just think about it for a second. Think about all the different passages you've ever heard or ever read in the New Testament that use the word grace. And then imagine that there's a dude who looks you in the eyes with a straight face and tells you, yeah, those apply to me. Those apply to me. And that's what he was talking about. I am that. So anything that's by grace, through grace, any of that at all, it's all him. Yeah, salvation is by grace only. God and grace are one. God is indivisible and grace is visible. And he'd capitalize it because it was him. And he'd point people and say, I'm talked about here, I'm talked about there. Imagine meeting somebody like that. Have you ever met somebody who's saying the most cultic things in the universe and then they start to kind of reveal to you slowly that they may be the prophet of the end times or something? I have, in Denny's. I met a dude, he was the man-child. He's like, I am the man-child. And he kind of did this like really, when he finally revealed it, I was having coffee and the guy was a little bit bizarre. His hair was all over the place. I'd recognized him walking around town wearing those like shorts that were around in the 70s. A lot of basketball players in Julius Erving's era would wear them. They were, kind of unnecessarily short and stuff. And he wore like those and a fanny pack and stuff. And he'd walk around, but he had a big old kind of afro, man. It was just curly hair, right? Big white dude, huge beard and stuff. And he's sitting down late at night, I think 1 a.m. Right? He had overalls on that day or something. And he's talking to me and everything. And he's quite obviously into some theology, but you could tell real quick it's some weird views. And then all of a sudden, he just drops this bomb and he's like, I'm the man-child of the apocalypse. I'm like, what? And bro's dead serious. He was dead serious. I also knew, I didn't know him. My cousin was friends. I don't even know if I want to say friends. He's going to get mad at me. My cousin went to Denny's. Why is it Denny's? It's always Denny's. It's like, is there like a sign on the door? If you're a cult leader, if you're some quackadoodle, come on in, right? Especially back in the day when you could smoke in there and stuff. So, but he would go there and there were people there who, every single day that they'd go, they'd talk about the apocalypse, right? Per usual. It's a thing. Enthusiasts hanker over that. And so they're talking about all the time, talking about private revelations and such. And one day somebody comes in, squealing in the parking lot, and closes the door, runs in. He's like, guys, you won't believe it. It's happening right now. Let's go. And he's like super urgent. He's super urgent. We've got to go. And they're like, are you serious? Yes, right now. Let's go. And they're like, okay. So they all like, my cousin's like, what's happening? What's going on? They're like, oh, follow us. And he's like, oh, okay. So he gets his stuff, goes to the car. These dudes broke the news to him. He'd been hanging out with them like, I don't know, 10, 15 times, talking about the book of Revelation, right? Doom buggies and helicopters and stuff, barcodes. And he's sitting there and he's talking to him. And they revealed to him in that moment, right, while unsheathing a sword in the back of homeboy's truck, there was a bunch of swords. And dude like pulls it like this, and he's like, "We are Highlanders." Like, I was like, what? Like the TV show, The Real Ones. Suffice it to say, my buddy did not go. Funny fact. He went back numerous times just to see like what happened with these guys. He never saw them back to that Denny's. He'd been there multiple times. They were regulars. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Like I Am or Psychiana and other fringe groups, Daddy Grace developed merchandising to a high art, offering a special range of products bearing his name. Everything from cosmetics to cookies, as well as uniforms, buttons, badges, and banners, and his Grace magazine. His services, of course, used radio for advertising, and the services were broadcast live. In the 1900s, the church still commanded a real estate empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is the interesting thing. Some people can say, well, you know, you make certain claims, Jeremiah, in following Knox, for example, about the underworld of medieval heresy or the development of ideas and social imaginaries and techniques and all of that over time that influence things that we typically attribute maybe to the 60s, or we attribute to something different at the time, the jungle or whatever, and you're making these claims. Did you even know? Did you even know, number one, that these groups existed? Number two, that even in the 1900s, right, that they still commanded a real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. We're not just talking $1 million. Hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a thing. You have black Jews. Let's see. Real quick in the comments. Yeah, and if you would like to connect with me again, if you want me to reference anything, just make sure to put @ meaning of Catholic on there, the meaning of Catholic, so that it shows up in orange for me. Can you address the supremacy of the Maronite Church and the infallibility of the Maronite Patriarch of Antioch and all the East? Everyone has been waiting for an answer. Has everybody been waiting for that? Has everybody been waiting? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, dude, there's somebody who's proud Jew in the comments. Who is that? Let's see. Jacob, Rome fell into heresy. Constantinople fell into heresy. Alexandria fell into heresy. But Antioch stayed faithful. Okay, I hear you. Are you joking about that, by the way? Yeah, and yeah, the way the Nation of Islam people, he talks about how you can pick them out of a crowd. Not just because they're wearing an ankh, right? Because that does happen, right? You have a lot of them that might wear that. You have people, you know, because of their uniform. Those are expensive, by the way. But the black Jews, for all their theological quirks, movements like these remained recognizably Christian, at least in their worship style. Black Jews in the 1920s, under the influence of insurgent racial nationalism, reinterpreted biblical history through an African lens, claiming that the story of the Hebrew people and the early Christians was in reality a story of oppressed blacks who had struggled against white oppressors. So they're like the flip side of the Christian identity movement. It's true. A lot of these neo-pagan folks that are like, oh yeah, in the Old Testament, they were all white people. Yeah, that's really what's going on here. You know, or Jesus was a white guy, that kind of a thing. And in honesty, and I like that he brings up this point, right? He talks about, you know, let's see here, hold on. Where does he bring it up? The people have been doing that for a long time. The racial appropriation of biblical history and ancestry was scarcely new or daring, as African Americans were explicitly doing what every white church did unconsciously when it posted pictures of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby Jesus standing proud before swarthy Levantine Pharisees. So how many images, and in Catholicism, we don't We say, look, we have all different kinds of religious images, all different shades of flesh tone, okay? All different tones. So we're not too worried about that. But we see it a lot, don't we? We see it a lot. And for a lot of people, there's people who they see a black Jesus or a black Blessed Virgin Mary, and they get spooked. They're like, whoa, how dare you? And then they're like, oh, check out Our Lady of the Snow over here. It's the Asian version of her. And I'm like, and all the while not realizing the white guy version of that is not at all an issue for people. Now, it's something that I just, you can see the way that there's a standard in many ways that would be applied to people doing that we don't apply to other groups. And there will be Catholic people. I'm not saying all Catholic people, right? Because I'm sure that in the comments, people can share some of their favorite icons and religious images that are written or painted in a way where Our Lady or our Lord, in fact, would be black. But a lot of people, especially Protestants, strangely enough, Protestants, right? Where tons of them, it's like, they don't have the same kind of thing. Like Jesus really does look like a specific thing. They're like, oh no, that right there is Jesus. And they're talking like the movies from the 60s where our Lord is in fact quite pale and frail. Didn't he have blue eyes? Several sects, of course, claimed primacy as the primacy as the original black Jewish movement. And that's the scuffle. That's what I was talking about the scuffle in their debates. But the first was probably the Church of God and Saints in Christ, which was organized by William S. Crowdy, a former cook on the Santa Fe Railroad. Following a visionary experience in 1896, Crowdy formed a church in Kansas City, which he headed as bishop. So he has a vision. He's a cook. He's got a vision. It's what he does. I got my dog in there. My dog is whining. I don't know if she's got to go outside or what she's got to do. But my wife is not here. No, I think she just showed up. Okay, that's why the dog. I'm like, am I going to have to get up mid-show? There's my wife. There's my kids. Yo, guys, get in here. I want you to see him. Today is our second to last day of school, and I want to thank everybody who supported the show, all the patrons, because 100% of the money that we make on Patreon is dedicated to sending my kids to Sacred Heart Academy. And so today is the second to last day. Tomorrow's the last day. Or no, today is the last day. Okay, no, it's not tomorrow. It's today. Today is the last day. It's the last day of the year. So they are officially done with school. They are home for oh no, they're home for the summer. They're home for the summer. I'm joking. I love my kids. I love all the time I can spend with them. Plus, they can do work for me to help little Louie and little Wolf do a better job taking care of the show. Yeah, real quick. Hey, I'm on the air right now. Get in here.
So I came in.
Right there. How was your last day of school?
It was good.
How'd you do?
What do you mean?
With school.
It was field day.
Oh, it's field day.
Yeah, we were playing sports.
Yeah, okay. I want you to just say thank you and wave to all the people because a lot of these people in here helped you guys this year to go to school. Okay?
Thank you, people.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Now go make me a sandwich. No, I'm kidding. Don't make me a sandwich.
Okay.
Make me a steak. Oh, I love my kids for real. But there were other movements, right? So he formed this church, visionary experience. He headed up as bishop. Crowdy's church adopted Jewish customs and feast days, and its clergy gradually adopted the title of rabbi. It also foreshadowed other African American sects by drawing on Masonic ritual and symbolism. There was another movement, the Church of the Living God, originally formed in 1889 by William Christian of Arkansas, who also claimed a special divine revelation. In 1900, Warren Robertson founded a communal settlement in Virginia under the title of the Temple of the Gospel of the Kingdom. The sect ultimately collapsed following Robert's conviction on sex charges in 1926. Finally, the Black Jews of Harlem were founded by a former officer of the Garvey movement. Okay, so you have this, and now we've got, the Black Hebrew Israelites. Oh, yeah. There's Teresa. How was school?
Good. I got one of my exams back.
Did you do good?
Yeah, 110 out of 130.
Yes. Say thank you to everybody for supporting.
Thank you.
Yes. Do you love the school?
Yeah,
Yes.
I do.
All right. Okay.
But, okay, bye.
I love you.
Bye.
All right. Yep. Thank you. I mean it. Like, the school's tough. It's demanding. There's a lot that goes into that. It's rigorous, in fact, for real. The kids every day have homework. My son has a book. It's like 500 pages that he has to read. He's going to be in 10th grade. He just finished 9th grade. He's going to be reading a 500-page book over.
Sorry, remember Adam's not here. He can't say thank you.
I know, yeah. I was just talking about him too. So 500 pages. He has to read over the summer. Okay, so and he's going into 10th grade. That's what they do. All right, they read the Republic. I think in 8th or 9th grade, Iliad, the Odyssey. Right, I think he's already read the Inferno. So there's like numerous different books that they read as they get older and older. And of course, they have Latin from kindergarten through 12th to be conversant, to be able to translate. The most highly awarded school in that division in the nation, right, for Latin and stuff. So we're very, very grateful for all of that, for all that you've done. That's why I did the show. I said I got to figure out a way because it costs. It's not easy. There's demands that are made, not only on them, but also on my wife and I. And so I said, well, we'll do the show. All right? So thank you. But the Black Hebrew Israelites, and we'll talk about them buggers in their own show, kind of like Nation of Islam. We'll have a show just dedicated to those two groups later down the road. Black Hebrew Israelites, people, you may remember the situation with the kid with the MAGA hat, right? At the Rally for Life. Right, March for Life, and he's got the Native American guy coming up, the activist, doing the chant and beating the drum in his face and all that. That actually was started by, there was an interaction and encounter with the Black Hebrew Israelites. There's some real freaks, man. There's some real freaks. We'll talk about them. We'll have fun. I know they'll really like the show. I know they'll really love what I've got to say. Yeah. Now we got black Muslims marching along. The pioneer of the American Muslim movement was Timothy Drew, or Noble Drew Ali, who preached a heterodox Islam with himself as the last prophet, a figure on a par with Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, and Zoroaster. Drew had no qualms about creating his own scriptures. He had a kind of a mix, right? You had the Quran, that was part of it. He attached his own statements and parts of contemporary New Age works to the established Holy Writ of the Arabic Quran. Large sections of the Holy Quran were appropriated from Levi H. Dowling's esoteric The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, which reported the career of, quote, Jesus in India, Europe, and Africa, in the land of Egypt. In other words, he's incorporating complete voodoo, complete nonsense. He's incorporating that. Oh, the Aquarian Gospel. That sounds legit. Yeah. Yeah. Like Bishop Crowdy, Drew also was indebted to Freemasonry. There it is again. It was a package, in fact, of mystical ideas. It held a particular appeal for Black Americans who, by the early 20th century, were largely excluded from the regular Masonic lodges in which whites satisfied their own curiosity about esoteric religion. So again, it's like a roundabout. You're barred from a group, not allowed to go. What do you do? What do you do? Let's see. Yeah, y'all let racist hate groups tell y'all groups that came about to protect black people were hate groups. Yeah, well, if you have, I understand what he's saying, right? And actually, you maybe missed it in the beginning. I actually said that. Okay? However, and I'm not a fan of certain groups like Southern Poverty Law Center, for example. I don't know anybody in this chat who thinks Southern Poverty Law Center is mega dope. I don't know any of us in that. In fact, some of us may be in that same basket as you on this, okay? Especially with their involvement with the traditional Latin Mass or traditional Catholicism. So you really ought to do better about familiarizing yourself with others who are also under that. But when you start saying things like that whites are blonde-haired, blue-eyed devils, when you say that, when you describe them in ways that are like just pure animals, you're doing the same thing. The same thing. You know, your beliefs are the same. I'm not saying the kind of power you wield. I'm saying that the beliefs are simply the inverse of that. And both of them are hot trash. Both of them are hot trash. And so, but does that deny, can a group that is hateful toward an out group be not hateful toward their own in group? Duh. Duh. Better logic is needed, bud. You ought to do better. And stop defending groups that say the most outrageous, absurd, nonsensical, poo-poo trash things. Especially when they're late, like my buddy who was the Nation of Islam, who was at my house, the people at the Nation, none of them let him in there. It took a white Catholic dude in his interracially married home, right? I'm with my wife, my mega hot half Korean beauty queen wife. White Catholic dude, blonde hair, blue eyes, interracial marriage, Catholic family, Trinitarian. We opened up our home. Helping your brothers? They could have done better. They were good at selling bean pies. Trust me, I'm grateful forever for them making them and selling them. It's now my favorite pie. They should have done better as a both and to actually bring in their brother. But they didn't. So don't give me that. Don't give me that. Let's see. 1913, Drew founded the Moorish Science Temple, MST, in Newark, New Jersey. However, Drew believed that Moors had Asian rather than African origins and should properly be termed Asiatics. Like the sect of Black Jews, the Muslims claimed to be restoring the authentic religious and racial character of African Americans who were cast in a messianic role. It actually makes sense. It makes sense. And it's not just with that, it's even politically, right? You got Sojourner Truth and others, right? The idea, this messianic notion that somebody's got to save them from slavery and oppression. It's not irrational. It's irrational to suppose that for yourself. Yes, that's unreasonable. That's easily, you would easily be able to destroy that. Easily. However, that idea that we need someone here to save us, I don't blame them for that. It's a terrible position that America put them in. We need to be honest about that. And that's not to say that there's no benefit. In fact, they benefit immensely from being here. But that doesn't itself justify certain things that were done. It doesn't. You can say one without saying the other. And the consequences for the other in this particular situation have been long-lasting, dramatic, difficult to overcome, even difficult at this point to understand and appreciate. On both sides. Culpability, there's an extreme on both sides. Oh, I don't have any. There's nothing to do. It can't blame the government, can't blame the culture, nothing like that, because it wasn't me. On the other hand, that it's an original sin. Culpability goes both ways, and I don't subscribe to either of those. And I don't want to get into a big conversation about that here. But I've talked about ideas regarding reparations before. Nation of Islam's ideas are absolutely outrageous. They're never going to happen. Never going to happen. Right? But the idea, and we've already been engaging in it. I think poorly, but no matter what, it was still done. But I won't talk about that here. Believers adopted Muslim names, incorporating the elements Bay or El, foreshadowing the practice made famous by the later Nation of Islam. Because the movement was firmly focused on Drew's own personality, it was irretrievably weakened when he disappeared in 1929. That would be a thing. if you are at a place where you're the main guy, right? You are God. You are the Messiah, and then all of a sudden you just disappear all of a sudden. There was violence resulting in this. A near riot in Chicago, 1929, an event that alerted white Americans to the existence, in fact, of the new Muslim sects. We also had the Ahmadiyya, a messianic sect of Islam whose leader claimed to be the Mahdi, the expected one. Ahmadiyya groups were founded in Chicago, Detroit, and other cities. Every black community of any scale had at least a vestigial Muslim group, which laid the foundation for the black Muslim expansion of later decades. And this is the last group we talk about, right here. Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam. By far the most important of the Muslim movements originated in Detroit around 1930 under the auspices of a mysterious peddler, Wallace Fard, right? Or Wali Fard, or Wallace Fard Muhammad. He developed a reputation as a prophet. He taught that the Muslim religion was intended to help free black peoples from oppression by whites, the blue-eyed devils, and their deceitful religion of Christianity. The black men in North America are members of the lost tribe of Shabazz, stolen by traders from the holy city of Mecca 379 years ago. So they're already making up, mythological stories regarding origin, and also failing to appreciate the fact that many of them bear the name with Muhammad of someone who was heavily involved in slavery. They failed to appreciate that. Even to this day, the involvement in the slave trade, where the slave trade is most pronounced in the world, and what religion is engaged in it. Do tell. He taught that the Muslim religion, right, was intended to create, as we can see from the precedent of the black Jews in the MST, Farad was not introducing any radical new doctrine, but was rather returning to a well-tilled field. Again, it's like Luther. He's not starting something that nobody thought of. He's simply igniting this field that had been doused with gasoline, right? Already. It had already been made susceptible to that, to ignition. The radical anti-white doctrine had a particular appeal during the depths of the Depression. Soon a Temple of Islam opened in Detroit, and the new Nation of Islam movement was consolidating the vestiges of other sects, including MST followers in Chicago and elsewhere. Converts were given true original names to replace the slave names that had been imposed upon them. That's a real thing too. That's a real thing too. And it's an unfortunate consequence, when you live in America, right? And you're importing slaves the way we did. And the way that we did this, okay, the way that this went about. It was a difficult thing. And yeah, I agree, by the way, on should be ashamed of the way that Red Indians, the way that Native Americans have been persecuted. I actually agree with that. Let's see. When Fard left the city in 1934, he was succeeded as leader by a convert who had taken the name of Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad dominated the group until his death in 1975. So he's in the day and age of Malcolm X, right? Muhammad Ali, Louis Farrakhan. The new American Islams differed substantially, in fact, from mainstream Muslim tradition. This is one of those things that people ask all the time. Well, is it Islam really? Is that really what that is? The Ahmadiyyas were attacked as heretical for their messianism. Noble Drew Ali violated two basic principles of the religion, namely the centrality of the revelation of the Prophet Muhammad and the unchangeable validity of the Quran. And the MST even adopted reincarnationist ideas. Wallace Fard went even further, allegedly claiming the role of supreme ruler of the universe. Fard became the, quote, supreme being among all black men. And the movement celebrates his birthday as that of the Savior. In fact, to this day, it's a really big deal. Right? Savior Day. It's a huge deal. In fact, a lot of the videos people will see, if they're not from the old Donahue show, right? Stuff like that, or the Million Man March, stuff like that, you'll see from Savior's Day. The doctrine of incarnation, of course, would horrify most Muslims around the world, for whom the act of associating any creature with Allah is an ultimate blasphemy. Shirk. And while mainstream Islam prides itself on being blind to distinctions of race or ethnicity, the black Muslims were ferociously anti-white, recognizing no salvation for any whites, even if they were loyal Muslims. Now, I've heard conflicting things about this at this point. Well, and truth be told, like ideas regarding salvation at all, right? It's the renewal of the mind is the raising of the mind. But there's a kind of naturalism and materialism in that worldview. There's a kind of there's elements that are foreign to the way that Christians and Muslims think about the world. It's kind of the infinite moment. It's this idea that, almost in some ways like Greek mythology, that the world pre-existed the gods. Right? Some versions of that. And what happens to the afterlife, by the way? What happens with that? But it was more than that, though. It was more than that. Because you have a variety of special revelations beyond those in the original Quran. Farad passed on his secret teachings through an orally transmitted secret ritual available only to initiates. According to Elijah Muhammad, God taught his people the mysteries of, quote, science and astronomy, the civilizations on other planets, and the knowledge of self. They had number mysticism. Again, that's not unique to them either. We talked about that in the last episode, talking about Isaac Newton and his fascination with number mysticism. Right? Their idea, getting into conversations, for example, some of the New Thought metaphysics folks getting into these long, it was a book. I forget, I don't know if it was Blavatsky or who wrote it. It was like 50 pages on the number 15. the remarkable nature of the number 15. We talked about the Bible code. The way that people, end up looking into numbers all the time, especially in mass media, especially in conversations about New World Ordites and the such, to look at numbers and try to find what's the numbers being shown on this, what's the number on the calendar. I would go so far as even say like things like barcodes, the original conspiracies regarding the WWW, the VAV 666. This number mysticism would so often recur in the movement up to the present day when Louis Farrakhan spoke at the Million Man March in Washington, D.C. in 1995. He invoked numerical oddities and parallels that often mystified his audience, but which had deep roots in Nation of Islam thought. The Nation taught the complex history of a universe said to be 76 trillion years old. 76 trillion. 76 trillion. Wow, what a remarkable number there that you came up with. But see, it's one of those like it's under lock and key because you have to have a knowledge, in fact, access to the secret mysteries. And some of these secret mysteries are at this point secured on this very large mother of planes in the sky that you may not see, that you may not even know is around you or above you at any given time. These wheels in the sky, because they're cloaked. It's got cloaking mechanisms. However, if you want to know the awareness that the world order has of it, Watch things like Independence Day. I'm dead serious, man. I'm dead serious. That's what they say. Let's see. They believe there's many inhabited worlds. And so do tons of people right now. But so, of course, did Benjamin Franklin. Recounted the secret histories of otherworldly civilizations on Mars and elsewhere. Blacks, the original people, dominated the planet for trillions of years, achieving astonishing feats of science until the calamitous rise of the white race. Whites were the result of a genetic experiment gone horribly wrong, the work of Yaqub, quote, a black scientist in rebellion against Allah. Yeah, in the 76 trillion. Those numbers sound a bit high. Yeah, they are a little bit. They're a little bit high. We're talking ancient stuff. We're talking the ancient esoteric secrets. But the idea, this is, if I remember right, this is the same. Yaqub was Yaqub also the one who was involved in the reason why we have a moon? And doesn't the story about the moon go a little bit like this? That he wanted to bring all the people together, right? To kind of speak. It's almost like the Tower of Babel can be attributed to this. And he was in going against Allah on that. And he wasn't getting his way. And he ended up, was it dynamite? Wasn't it dynamite that he put into deep into the earth? It was so big that it exploded, wham! And all of a sudden, this big chunk of earth goes up. And it reaches the atmosphere and gets sucked out into the sky, which is why, and then it was connected, if I remember right, to the ocean. It's connected to water. And that's why there's a draw between waves and the moon. Correct me in the comment section, right? If I'm wrong about that, I'm being serious. Like I don't have the book out. In the next episode, we'll talk and we'll just quote directly from the book, and we will also the books that I've got. And we'll also talk to my buddy who's going to come on the show. And he'll be smoking a cigar for sure. These monstrous creations, white people were permitted to oppress other races for 6,000 years until God became incarnate in the man Wallace Fard. An event signaled in the beginning of the end of the white supremacy. Imminent Armageddon would be initiated by the mother plane, a colossal UFO that would annihilate America and the white powers. So yeah, I mean, you got, the mother plane. You got the mother plane up in the sky, cloaking device, controlling things like weather. It's where all of the amazing science, the best science and the best math that you've ever seen in your life, it's all there. And that's where the leaders are. They don't die. They get brought up into the mother plane. Although Fard himself claimed little formal education, he was an eclectic thinker who borrowed from Freemasonry, Jehovah's Witness doctrines, and Baptist apocalyptic theology, eschatology, among other sources. Like the founder of MST, Fard had drunk deep from the springs of New Age teaching. He lived in LA from 1918 through 1929, the period of messianic hopes surrounding the Krishnamurti, founded in the same year as the I Am movement. And as a spokesman for the Ascended Master, Wallace Fard, Elijah Muhammad had much in common with his white theosophical contemporaries, serving as earthly interpreter, much as Guy Ballard did for his own Count of Saint Germain. So you're seeing again, you see the continuity of this. If you understand the undercurrents, the underpinnings, those influences that make them what they are, you can see a continuity, and it cuts across racial divides. In fact, it would seem that these very, very white ideas had made their way in, kind of like Scientology now, especially the Nation of Islam. You can see debates on that, defending the connection now between the Church of Scientology and the Nation of Islam. Literary sources may also have influenced Nation of Islam thought. 1927, you have William Seabrook. He published his Adventures in Arabia It describes a secretive Muslim sect like the Druze. Olaf Stapleton's 1931 science fiction novel, Last and First Men, was an account of the evolution of the human race, okay, as it migrates through the solar system over the coming 2 billion years. This reads like the elaborate multi-trillion year interplanetary history depicted in Nation of Islam mythology. Of course, you have the theosophical speculations about the rise and fall of successive root races, as the account of Yaqub's creation of the white race echoes contemporary writings about the emergence of a new race in the Pacific West. Even the incarnationism has echoes here. Some Shiite sects believe that God has successively manifested himself in several earthly figures, including Muhammad and Ali, while the Druze accept the divinity of the 10th century Caliph Hakim. Shiites have a high regard for the charismatic and clerical authority of their spiritual leaders, the imams. Particularly Shiite is the idea of occultation, the notion that great leaders and imams, right, imams, do not die but remain concealed from the world until the time is right for their reappearance. And so that gives speculation even for Fard. It gives cover. And it's reasonable. They can find it and say, look, yeah, we're not making that up. We're not making that up. And it would be hard, of course, to figure out, like, whatever happened to that guy anyway. What happened to him? Because in 1934, he departed from Detroit. What happened to that guy? He went into obscurity. But again, the Shiite would have spoken in terms of an imam retreating into holy obscurity. The presence of these ideas would be easier to explain if we knew anything about them, but we don't. Right? We don't know. Police thought that he was Polynesian or Hawaiian. His Detroit followers believed he was Syrian or Lebanese. If he was Lebanese, that would make sense to the Shiites. Right? So, but it would give ideas to this. Like, well, at least for him, but what about those who follow him and the way that they talk about it? Just the mere existence of that within the broader context of Islam makes sense. Let's see. The problem, of course, arose, and this is the end. The problem, of course, arose with ideas concerning sacrifice. Okay? As an autonomous separatist movement, the black Muslims attracted profound suspicion from the authorities, as well as from African American Christian leaders. The group attracted many stories concerning its violent tendencies. It developed an armed paramilitary organization, the Fruit of Islam. You see this, of course, in the controversy even with the Me Too movement. Some of the leaders at the time in the Me Too movement were seen in multiple pictures surrounded by guards, the Fruit of Islam. And that's when they got in trouble, of course. There was a major divide. And that's when they got caught up in the mix, calling Louis Farrakhan the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Major time controversy. They thought they could slip that in there. Maybe nobody would notice. There's a little Farrakhan up in the house. Oh, what's that over there? Oh, it's Farrakhan. Oh, what? You're connected with this guy? That was a serious problem. And just so people know, I've already mentioned one thing. Just because there's serious problems with that doesn't mean that the other side didn't have serious problems with their logic as to why he couldn't be there. Or that there weren't certain elements at play within that debate from the get-go that was kind of underlying the tension. Who was involved? What groups were involved in that? What racial, ethnic groups were involved in that spat? Some of it goes back to Baldwin. Right? Baldwin, Podhoretz. You've got stuff going back quite a way. Jay-Z fleshed it out in one of his songs. about a group of folks that's buying up all the land, gobbling up the loot. It's an old tension. It's an old disagreement that they have. You know, it's one of those things where I can even agree, for example, on things that are done the way that America has dealt, for example, with the Middle East. The way that we've played the entire affair involving the Palestinians and the Israelis. There's a lot of things I would actually say that I agree on with that. Same thing with certain things to do with food. Like I agree on that stuff. I just don't agree on the idea that the black folks got this extra germ that makes them godlike. And that if they just got back to the roots, there's magical powers connected to this sort of thing. Or the idea that there's no spirit. Obviously, we're ensouled creatures. They have a funky kind of materialism. And again, they call it, we ain't no spook. The group's oral secret ritual was reported to have taught, quote, that it was the duty of every Muslim to offer as sacrifice 4 Caucasian devils in order that he might return to his home in Mecca, end quote. Police and court records of the early 1900s suggest that sacrificial incidents, in fact, did occur. Though it's controversial whether these involved the following of secret doctrine or just outbreaks by deranged individuals. One of these, for example, involves somebody who remarkably enough, was able to convince, his roommate? To convince his roommate to allow him to be a sacrifice? Killed the dude? It's wicked bad. Yeah, it's wicked bad. Yeah, it says right here, Harris. Okay, yeah. November 1932. Harris induced his roommate to volunteer to be stabbed to death as a ritual sacrifice. However, and this is big, Harris claimed the membership in the splinter group, the Order of Islam. His crime was blamed on African-American Muslims in general. And that gets us back to the beginning. To say sometimes we find ourselves at a place where we don't appreciate the factors involved at the time because of the way that development over time has either offended us, right? Inspired us, changed us, put blame on us. And so we oftentimes diminish that, or we just admit it and pass it by and don't recognize the profundity, in fact, of how those things even affected the developments that ultimately led to these places. It's not just like this dramatic disconnect. It's also why you end up having, for example, here, Harris's murder provoked a major anti-Muslim movement between 1932 and 1934. Detroit's black clergy launched fierce attacks on the, quote, fanatical teachings and barbarous practices of the Muslim cult, and they urged police to combat, quote, the sinister influences of voodooism. But it's not voodoo. I say voodoo. That's like wacky tobacco. It's quackadoodle you. Okay? Cuckoo, crazy pant nonsense. I got all different words for it. But voodoo's a thing. Voodooism is an ism, and isms matter. They're playing fast and loose. In fact, the Detroit Free Press used the term voodoo in virtually all of its stories. Police intervention drove back Muslim activities underground, which resulted in Fard's arrest and departure from Detroit. Supposedly, he even confessed to police interrogators that his whole scheme was from the very start a money-making racket. It wouldn't be the first. Even the Palmarians, right? Even the Palmarians said, like, there are numerous groups that go, oh yeah, I was all about the money. I was all about the money. I'm not really the Lord. I'm glad to know that. I'm glad you know that. Okay, good. Legal assaults continued through the decade, including efforts by Michigan's Board of Education to close Islamic schools. And there were armed confrontations with police. In 1934, Elijah Muhammad himself was arrested for, quote, contributing to the delinquency of a child, and voodooism. So again, we're seeing how this plays out, right? Just to give you an idea, a thumbnail sketch. This is not meant to be anything that's exhaustive, not even close. You could do multiple episodes on each of these groups. You could do multiple episodes uniquely dedicated to the specifics of developments that led to them. Ideas regarding theosophy, Freemasonry, right? These esoteric arts and stuff. That's how it played in. The math magic, right? The math mysticism with numbers. All of this, how that affected, how race and the tensions affected that. But the overall idea is we're talking about the octagon of history. It's an ongoing battle of ideas. There's an ebb and a flow in the interplay. And so just to become aware of those things, to better understand those things, rather than just buying into certain terms and words that being used against certain groups that would be bad enough and wrong enough by themselves with an accurate explanation. And what ends up happening to the social imagination of people if you use phrases, for example, like voodoo, the images that it conjures, the feelings and the fear, they are conjured by that. And saying you can go against these groups without the necessity of invoking imagery that's fake. You don't need to do that. And that's one of the things that I hope people appreciate about this, is that when they talk to other people now, if you talk to people like this who believe any of the enthusiasms, any of the heresies or cults that we talk about, you're going to have a better idea for what they believe, why they believe what they believe, where it all came from, who their founders were, what their holy books are, the different legal issues that have gone into play with that, and some of the unfair judgments that have been made, unnecessary and unfair and untrue. And you can avoid those because those are pitfalls. It's not going to help you in a debate. It's not going to help you in your witness in evangelizing people who desperately need the truth of Christ in their lives. Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I hope you appreciate it. You know, I'll talk to my buddy this weekend. And figure out a time that he can come on the show. Now, that show, any interview that we do on the show would be a live stream probably done at Paleocrat. So not at Reason and Theology, not over at Meaning of Catholic, but on the actual channel. I haven't used it in a long time, but we're changing that up. That's changing, okay? We're going to be doing that. We're going to be changing it up. We've got to for multiple reasons. And so if you want to catch up with those interviews and stuff, as well as videos, highlight stuff, vintage stuff that we're going to be promoting on there, clips and highlights from various shows, that stuff is all going to be over at youtube.com/Paleocrat. So you got to make sure to go there. All right. I'm really grateful for all of you. I hope you enjoyed the show. I do. I know I do. I love doing this. I love learning about different groups. But not just because of some weird curiosity, but because I want to know. I love learning about ideas. I love learning about how things impact us in our lives. Sometimes in a way that's very subtle. Sometimes in a way that's very unfortunate. And sometimes in a way that's totally awesome. You know, like, for example, the show. And so being able, though, to put that together, right? And to have an apologetic, like a megazord apologetic, that brings in different ideas and says, okay, here's how we can better frame the argument. Here's how we can better understand not just the nature of the argument or the nature of their belief or the nature of why there's a disbelief in that, right? That we are opposed to it. But also, how can we effectively communicate that in our evangelization, in the efforts to show them the true mystery, right? To show them the true Savior, the one and only God, and the church that our Lord founded. How can we do that? Right? And is it triumphant? Yes, it's triumphant, but is it triumphalistic? Or are there times where things can legitimately be said to say, I think that that was wrong the way this played out. Or I'm really sorry that that happened. Or I think that that's actually an otherwise decent point. A lot of these conversations involve much more than dogma. They involve considerations regarding culture, or politics, or economics, or basic common courtesy. And I think that it's good that we learn this stuff. So, hey, head on over to Telegram for the Q&A after this. Until next time, never give up. Keep on smiling. Woo! And momentum more.
I wanted to make people dream bigger thoughts.